Hello.
Hello.
We are live. I'm going to give it a second for a couple of people to join as well, because I'm aware that I'm starting early. But as this is being recorded, it doesn't matter because people can go watch the beginning again if they want to. But I am joined today for a slight change to our scheduled programming. If you saw the LinkedIn post that I did earlier today, we unfortunately had somebody drop out of this session due to illness this morning. And so actually it gave us an opportunity to have a think about doing the conversation slightly differently. So instead of it just being a group of HR coaches talking, I have asked Emma Eustace to join us, who is an HR leader who has received coaching in the past and is an advocate of coaching off the back of that. And we thought it would bring a nice balance to the conversation. So we've changed the title slightly. It's not just how to choose a coach now. It is, what would I actually get from coaching and how do I choose one? So we wanted to try and answer some of the questions that some of you have around, what is this coaching lark anyway? I know I didn't know a thing about it before I started doing it. So I know that people sometimes struggle to understand what it's all about. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I am joined by two Emmas and a Mags, but I will introduce them all individually. So first up, I mentioned Emma Eustace already. So Emma is an HR leader, someone that I've known for a few years now and have actually worked with on a coaching basis. So Emma thank you very much, Emma, for joining us. It's especially at such blooming short notice. Mags Kerns is an HR coach. Hello, Mags. And what's the name of your Facebook group again?
The HR Sanctuary.
The HR Sanctuary on Facebook. Absolutely. I always forget the name. I'm terrible. Sorry. And then I've got Emma Jamil, who is Boss Babe, as she told me she would like to be introduced. Aside from that, Emma is also an HR coach. She is also the founder of the HR Big Meet. She's hilarious on TikTok and a good friend of mine as well. So thank you, ladies, for joining me today. Very much appreciated. For those of you listening, you'll see the chat on the screen here. If you've got any questions or comments as we go through, please just pop them in. I'll keep an eye on them and we'll try and answer what we can if anything comes up. But let's get stuck into some of the questions that I've been thinking about around this conversation. So one thing I should say as well, sorry, my introductions will go on for half the session. Everybody on this call today has received coaching and been a coachee. Like 3 of us are coaches, but we have all received coaching as well. So I think we can probably give that perspective from both sides of the coin. So when we think about coaching for HR professionals in particular, and I'm going to ask Emma D this first. What do you see as some of the key kind of challenges or obstacles that HR people come to you for when they're looking for coaching?
The main things that I see people come to me for are a feeling of stuckness. So they've kind of reached a point in their career where they've got the job title, they've done all the stuff that they thought they wanted to do, like get to the right position, and yet they're kind of still dealing with operational stuff. They're still not getting listened to by their senior team. They'll quite often use the words, "It's a battle, I'm constantly fighting." And underneath that, there's then kind of a loss of confidence, like being in that environment, having to fight all the time, feeling like you have to fight all the time, not getting the fulfillment of being able to implement the initiatives that you're coming up with. That is then kind of then starting to make them think, well, do I want to do HR anymore? If I didn't want to do HR anymore, what would I do? And then trying to work out, what do I enjoy doing? Like there's just a whole kind of melting pot underneath, really just a feeling of just stuckness, not really knowing where to go next. And Mags is kind of agreeing. I can see you seeing that too.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? I honestly think it's very rare that I've had a first call with a coaching client and they haven't said, I think I might have fallen out of love with HR. I don't know if I should stay in HR anymore. It's so common that we think that because things don't feel right, it must be HR that's at fault. And haven't actually had anybody leave HR as a result of those coaching conversations yet. Some have gone out on their own as consultants, but I don't know anyone who's left completely. But it's interesting that that's one of the first things that comes up. Mags, what would you add to that in terms of what you see from clients?
I mean, it's pretty much everything Emma said. It's just the pressures and demands of working in such a tough environment. I mean, I don't think people realise how tough working in HR is until you've done it. And you're all the nodding. And anytime I say that to a group of people or to an individual, I get that absolutely, that's it. And it's really hard to explain what it's like to work in HR, and you kind of get like, how difficult can it be? It's just the same as any other profession. Well, I just disagree with that. I think it's not. I think it brings a whole heap of extra things, extra kind of pressures and demands that other professions perhaps don't bring. And I don't mean that to sound like a pity party and poor us, but it is a fact of life that we are dealing with a lot of stuff. It's the emotional, I think, pressures and demands that we sometimes have, and that just make it really, really difficult. So usually when people come to me for coaching or approach me, they're just a very low ebb. Can I do this anymore? I've had enough. And they've got nobody to turn to. I mean, I'm really pleased to see more people out there now that are beginning to be like Emma, and there's others out there that are helping HR professionals. But, when I first came on the scene 5-6 years ago, it was very little. But they feel very isolated, very alone, nobody to talk to, nobody understands how they feel, because at work they have that professional boundary, they can't do that. And they're often they're the leader of the HR team, and therefore they can't, offload with the team particularly, and, they have to have that professional boundary. So I think they come to me for coaching as a safe space, and somebody who gets it, because I've got my background is HR. I did it for 25 years before I pivoted into coaching. And so, it's somebody who gets the profession, understands it, has walked that path, and can just understands and helps them with where they're feeling. And it's things like, as Emma absolutely, nailed it when she said it's, the frustrations that they have, the not being heard at the top table, the being stuck in the weeds rather than being able to do the strategic, all that kind of thing. And then the knock-on effect of that is low confidence. Their self-belief starts to drop. The imposter syndrome kicks in. Do I deserve this role? Am I going to be tapped on the shoulder and asked to leave? And these feelings are very, very real. And then, of course, you get the stress, the overwhelm, heading towards burnout, those kinds of feelings. And they're just some of them are just at, almost like the cliff edge. They're just, they can't do it anymore. And as you said, do I want to work in HR anymore? Is it HR? But funnily enough, when you said, I've never had anyone who's actually left it, I haven't as a coach. They've always stayed in it, but it's just worked out what was going wrong and worked on that. And so you see, some of them have moved into another company. Sometimes they've gone out on their own, or they've just seeing where they are in a different light, and that changes things from within. So, yeah. So
just want to add a couple of things that I've seen as well that I absolutely love. Now, don't get me wrong. There's something really satisfying about being able to help somebody through a really tough time. But I have had a few coaching clients who've come to me because they've just had a big promotion and they just want to make sure they get it right. And they just want a sounding board, and they want to make sure that they hit the ground running and that they establish their relationships with the new senior stakeholders the right way, right from the start. And it's really more about having like a cheerleader and somebody in your camp that can kind of walk you through that. So I guess that's a much more positive spin on it, that people come to you because I already know I'm good at what I'm doing, but I'm about to be asked to do a whole load more. And so I thought it would be good to work with someone that can help me make sure that I get that right. So that I love. I've got somebody who was, she's in a global head of reward role. And, I don't have a reward background, but it doesn't matter. For her, it was more about stakeholder management, relationship building, communication, that sort of thing. And so I think, it's possible. It's obviously possible to do either. I do think confidence is probably something that comes up the most across every type of coaching client I've ever had. The confidence piece comes up the most. But just wanted to kind of throw that one in there as well. So Emma, when you've sought coaching in the past for yourself, has it been those sorts of challenges that you've been facing, or what's been your kind of rationale for seeking out a coach?
Well, I've had coaching on more than one occasion, but just thinking about what we were talking about there, an example I could relate to at a previous company. I was asked to do something by a more senior member of the HR team. I was still in a senior position myself. I didn't really agree with what I'd been asked to do, so I challenged it politely and professionally. I will add, I did, and it was met with, it wasn't met well. The person wasn't very happy with me, and they called my integrity into question. At that point, it was very much, it became very personal, and I was absolutely devastated, to be honest, because it was calling my integrity into question. And along with that came things you've just been talking about, knock to confidence, imposter syndrome creeping in. Is she challenging me? Am I in the wrong? Am I in the senior position? Should I not be in the senior position? And I was going round and round in circles with it. I was losing sleep over it, and I got to the point where I was thinking, I just don't know what to do to fix this. So reached out quite openly, say on here to Kirsty, to say, are you still coaching, or can you point me in the right direction of somebody who is? Because I'm in a big pickle and I don't know what to do to fix it. And over the course of the 4 sessions that we had, to sum it up in a nutshell, it very much came down to taking the emotion out of the situation, so to actually look at it pragmatically, as if you would in HR, and almost advising somebody to do the same thing. But when you're in the thick of it, it was really, really tricky. But I think it very much came down to what's within my control and what isn't. And as soon as it had that sphere on it, it became much easier to handle. And over the course of the 4 sessions, unpicking it all, it really, really did allow me to do that in a way that I don't think mentoring or somebody giving you a sounding board for advice could do. It was one of those things that I had to work through with a coach myself to be able to get to the bottom of it. I think the benefit of doing that was that now I'm at the other side of it. I don't hang on to anything emotionally, even though it was a really tough time. Don't still worry about it. Don't still think back and worry about it in the way I was doing at the time. It very much closed the chapter on it. One side, worked my way through it from a coaching perspective.
That's nice. I like that. What did you? I'm going to stay with you actually, Emma, because the next question that I've got is around like goals that we have when we go into coaching. So what were you hoping to get out of that? And yeah, what when you went into those conversations, what sort of, what were you hoping for? I guess that's all I want to say. I'm trying to find another way of saying it, but that is all I want to say. What were you hoping to get from it?
Well, to be honest, I didn't necessarily had a goal in mind. I was just looking for a way to try and fix it. And I think the coaching allowed me to chat through it in a way that, or even the questioning, I think the way that the questioning, the things that I was asked made me reframe it in my own mind and think about what do I need to do to get myself through this situation. So there was definitely an element of confidence. There was definitely imposter syndrome in there, but it was almost, what do I need to make this right for me? And that's what I was able to do through the course of those sessions. But I think for people who have a clearer goal, it would have the same benefits as well, because they're able to focus on exactly what they want to achieve. But I also think that your goals can evolve. You might go in with one thing thinking this is where I think I need to focus, and actually through the course of the sessions, it can sometimes materialize to be something else.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, actually. And Max, when people typically come to you, do they have goals in mind, or is it more a question of they fall out during the conversation and they don't really know what it is that they need?
Yeah. So some of them do occasionally, but more often than not, where they come to me is, I know where I am now is where I don't want to be. I don't ask me where I want to be, Max, because I don't know where it is, but I don't want to be here right now feeling like this. It's how I feel. That's where they don't want. So I kind of tease it out of them where they do want to be instead. And actually, I ask my clients to fill out a pre-programmed questionnaire. And that sort of starts to kick the kind of cogs into motion in terms of thinking what perhaps they do want out of it. And I do talk to them very much about how they want to feel, how, the emotions, the thought processes, and then what their lived experience is going to be like day to day. And then we kind of from that get down to specifics of like boosting their confidence. But then I'll kind of drill down, in what situations is it? Because people sometimes just say, I'm not confident. But when you drill down, they've got confidence in lots of things. It's just certain situations. And you kind of draw that out and they kind of get clarity there. So it's those kind of things. And sometimes it's mindset. It's mainly mindset, confidence and those kinds of things. But you do sometimes get career clarity goals as well, and we'll sort of work out where they want to be, where are they now, where do they want to be, and then work out a roadmap of how they're going to get there together. So those kinds of things, yes. But some come with goals, but more often than not, we work them out as part of the process together. Yeah.
Is that the same that you found, Emma, or do you find that people tend to have it all? Well, I guess they wouldn't come for coaching if they had everything.
I don't want to.
No, I think they're coming with a kind of, I think probably that they're knowing what they don't want right now. And so they're finding themselves in a place where they're kind of, this is not for me right now. And they have some view, I suppose, of what it should be like. But for me, it's the motivation behind that. So when you're shoulding yourself, is that really what you want? So quite often what comes from the coaching is an outcome that's completely unexpected, because you've actually dealt with things that not as superficial. This is what's on there. This is what's happening behaviourally kind of level. You're dealing with it at a kind of deeper kind of level, understanding the thoughts and that are going into the behaviours, and that's not that it doesn't go into counselling in that way. It's not like coaching and counselling aren't the same thing, but when you start digging beneath the surface of what someone wants up here, you kind of naturally do then go into talking about things at a deeper level, which is when the change happens that's completely unexpected, and you're like, well, where did that come from? And it's cool to see that happen for people, but it's trying to explain that to people and say, what do you get out of coaching? Like the amount of people who come at the end and they just go, I just feel peace now. I'm like, well, how the hell do I market peace? How do you tell people they're going to feel peaceful? Who's going to pay for that? But that's the benefit that people talk to me about. It's just kind of clarity of mind, which is not something that they set out to get from their coaching journey at all.
Yeah, I think my very first experience of being coached was when I did my executive coaching qualification, and you had to do lots of practice sessions with each other in a group, and we were lucky, it was right before COVID, so it was all in person. We just had to do our final assessment remotely because lockdown had kicked in the week before, so it was end of 2019, and I was interested in it, and I was doing the qualification, but I'd never been coached. And I remember most of the sessions that I had, and bear in mind, this is just with people who were also training like me, I would come away from every single one with this huge realization that I just hadn't articulated to myself before. And I remember thinking, this is scary, powerful stuff. Like, if I can help anybody else get light bulb moments like this, then this is something I want to be part of. Absolutely. And I just loved it. And I think I've used my coaching skills as much with line managers in my HR roles as I have as a coach with coaching clients specifically, because it's so powerful. It's just that whole, don't tell people what to do, ask them questions so that they can work it out for themselves. And even when they don't think they're going to be able to work it out, they somehow always do. And that's really, really quite phenomenal.
And that's what made me decide to want to be a coach, was having coaching. I thought, I want your job.
Really?
Yeah, I want your job. I'd left an HR job that was just so toxic. I thought, I can't do this anymore. So left. I didn't flounce out and slam doors. I worked my notice and left. So sorry, this is
I
not
like
just
the sound of flouncing.
flouncing. But, so I thought, I'm going to work with I worked with a coach, and that was the first time I'd worked with a coach. I thought, I'm going to pivot in my career here, or perhaps I will. And it was working with the coach, and I had this light bulb went off, and I just thought, I want your job. I want you make people feel, I'll help people feel the way you're making me feel right now. And that was it for me. Wow. That was how powerful it was for me. It was just so powerful. The things that I got out of it, and the revelations and the things that came up to the surface, was just incredible.
Yeah, it was. When I first did it, I was still working through how I was feeling after being let go from a job, and it had absolutely battered my confidence. And there were all sorts of things that I thought I was bothered about, and it actually quite often they came down as other things. And so it was really quite life-changing for me. What do you think, Mags? I'll stick with you here. What are some of the misconceptions that you think people have about coaching? and the reasons that sometimes, puts people off from considering it as an option?
I think a lot of it's just a lack of understanding, and through no fault of theirs, of what it is. Because I do think it's relatively new on the scene. It's becoming much more mainstream now, I think. But I think people just, people sometimes, is it counselling? Is it mentoring? Where does it fit in? So I think there's a kind of just a lack of understanding what it is. Some people, another misconception is it a sign of weakness that I need to have coaching? There's something wrong with me that needs to be fixed.
That's
and no, absolutely
yeah.
not. It takes huge self-awareness, takes a lot of courage sometimes, and strength, and just commitment to yourself to take up coaching. So I would say absolutely not. It's probably the exact opposite of that. It's about fulfilling your potential. It's not about fixing you, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's just sometimes we have blocks and things in our paths that are stopping us being the full potential version of us that we can be. And that's what coaching's about. It's just bringing out the true best version of you. So we get that. What else? It can take a lot of time. Not necessarily, I think, particularly I'm very conscious, because all my clients are HR professionals, and I just know how time poor they are. So I factor that into the coaching and make sure that the work they're doing between the sessions is very much around maybe changing the way they do the things they do anyway, but doing them in a different way, like speaking up in meetings as an example, to build their confidence. So it's not about journaling for hours and things like that. So I'm very conscious of that. So it doesn't have to be time consuming. So don't let that put you off. What else is there?
I've had people ask me that. Is there going to be homework?
Homework. And I try and avoid using that word, because it's just got so many negative connotations doing your maths at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. No, it's not like that. Hopefully stuff that and they come up with their own actions anyway. That I don't set them homework. They come up with the ideas themselves. And then the other thing I think is it ridiculously expensive? And I think people get that impression because I know when I worked in the corporate world, I saw the invoices, or I sourced coaching for others in the organisation, thought, Jesus, how do like the prices that people charge in the corporate scene. And I know, and all my clients are, I only deal with individuals, HR professionals who come to me directly, either because the companies can't pay, won't pay, or they don't want the company to know they're having coaching sometimes, because there can be a stigma.
That's very common.
So my clients are people that come to me individually, and they don't have corporate bank accounts, clearly, obviously, so they can't afford. So I think you'd be surprised, because there are more coaches out there who do the same thing. They're dealing directly with individuals. The pricing is far more accessible and affordable than they might think. So don't let that be a barrier. Explore it at least and see. And I know I do payment plans if people need that. If that helps. If that, to spread the cost, because I know, some people's budgets require that. So that's another misconception I'd say, but just check it out. Don't assume it's going to be out of your grasp financially, because, I deliberately price it to make it accessible to HR professionals, because I know it's not accessible to corporate prices. So I try and make it so that people can afford it and have access to it. So
corporate prices is a whole different kettle of fish.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Remortgage your house prices, isn't it? So it's totally. So this is so don't assume it's going to be out of your price range. Check it out before you decide that. Yeah, it's something else. So they're the main ones I think that I would talk about.
Emma D, what would you add in terms of misconceptions? What are some of the things that you've seen?
Can I answer it slightly differently?
You do you, my love.
I'm going to.
What would you like to answer a completely different question?
Yes, let's do it. Let's talk about Christmas. No, let's not do it.
Yeah.
And the thing that was in my head was like a blocker to people actually getting like signing up for coaching themselves. And I think there's a bit of a blocker that people think it's really like selfish and a bit frivolous to invest, particularly when you're talking about an investment that is a significant investment that you wouldn't normally spend on your personal development. I think that can be a blocker sometimes, of being like, well, am I worth it? Am I worth this investment of this amount of money? Can we afford it in my household? I'm the main earner. And that can sometimes get in the way, I think, of people kind of going for it. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think one of the other things I jump in is that there is sometimes a misconception that you're going to get told how to fix everything. And I mentioned this earlier on, but that one comes up a lot. And some people are surprised that you don't give them all the answers, but that's different. Mentoring is a lot more like that, where you'll sort of guide people based on your own experience. And some of us also do a mixture of mentoring, like those of us that have an HR background will sometimes mix in some mentoring as well, if that's what the client wants. But it depends. I've had coaching clients who have said, can we have a session on my HR strategy? Can I just run it past you and you can give me some feedback? And I'm like, I'm more than happy if that's what you want to spend your session doing. Absolutely. And that's not coaching. I'm very clear on that. That's slightly different. But so that's one of them. Other thing, you were talking about cost. It's surprising the number of companies that will actually pay for coaching support for their HR people. I would say about 50% of my coaching clients have self-funded, and the other 50% have talked their bosses into paying for it for them.
Yeah. I do get that as well. People say, although I don't go directly to companies, the clients will come to me, then go and ask, and they'll come back and say, oh, my company's going to pay for it. So, yeah, sometimes
will happen. What was the other thing I was going to say about misconceptions? Yes, you talked about weakness earlier, Mags. I think one of the things that we've done as well, sometimes companies have used coaching in place of a performance development plan for people within their organization. So you've got a COO who isn't hitting their goals. So let's get a coach in, see if that can fix them. That's the company not understanding what coaching is all about. But because we're quite often the ones that are involved in finding that executive coach for the CEO, usually at about £1,000 an hour, there is this kind of residual belief that you must be shite at your job if somebody's getting a coach for you. Not true. All of the coaching clients that I've ever worked with have been brilliant at their jobs. They just need a little bit of extra support, help, guidance, whatever it is. Emma, what would you say? Was there anything that surprised you about coaching versus what you thought it was going to be?
Well, I think a lot of it's been covered in the sense that it's it's very much you have to be willing to put yourself through the changes, that you have to be prepared to commit to making these changes yourself, because it leads to changes in behaviour, etc. So it is very much quite self-led in that respect. Yeah, obviously you couldn't do it without the coach, but you have to be prepared to be very open and not hide anything. And if you want the best out of it, you have to be a completely open book with your coach. So I think the relationship aspect with your coach and having that open dialogue is absolutely vital. Because otherwise you're not going to unlock the true potential of what it's there to do. But I agree with everything else everybody else has said. I think it's, as an HR professional who was toying with the idea of having it for a while, there's always a reason not to have it. Oh, I'm too busy, mate, I should be devoting more time to sorting this situation out. And you taught yourself out of it for long enough. And then when the example I gave, when I actually went in and actually had the sessions, I wish I'd done it sooner, in all honesty, because I could have been further ahead and procrastinating, and could have just been much happier, in all honesty.
Oh my God, I think about that for myself. Like, I wish that I had a coach in my 30s and 40s, but there was no one, because I'm so old. There was nobody 20 years ago doing coaching for HR professionals at all. But I think, especially when you're in a standalone role, who the heck are you supposed to talk to? And I did a couple of standalone roles, and I'm like, oh my God, what I could have done with this back then. So, anywho, let's talk practicalities, and I'll come to you first, Emma D. But in terms of like structure and frequency of sessions and how long they are, what sort of things, how much flexibility do you think people need, and what kind of works do you think?
I operate in 6 or 12 session packages. Generally, I'm dealing with a transformation, not like a preparation for an interview or something. So I think if you're it depends on what you're going to a coach for. If it's in preparation of an event, you can probably have like a 1 hour session and bosh, job done. You're going to get like loads from that. When you're talking about career clarity, where are you going next, direction, transformation in terms of a confidence and how you think about yourself kind of space, then you're, in my opinion, you're looking at more like towards the 12 session thing. And for me, that can either be I think when you're talking transformation, you don't want to leave it more than 2 weeks between each session, personally, just because you're like dealing with stuff and then stuff gets a bit icky and you're like, oh my God. So if you leave it much longer than that, then it's going to be a bit hard in between sessions. Sometimes weekly might be what you need. If you're looking at that long-term support, then it can be kind of once a month. But generally, I'd say most of my clients, we work on a like fortnightly basis. And then, as Mag says, you have kind of stuff to do in between, which is like you're trying out space, and then you come back to the session and you're like, that was terrible. And then we work out why, and then that was brilliant. And then we do more of that. And so, yeah, I think it's, for me, probably you're going to be looking at like an hour every couple of weeks with stuff in between, because there's no point in coming to the session thinking that you're going to get benefits from just coming to a session, having a conversation. You've got to practice this stuff, you've got to implement it, you've got to try it. So you do have to be quite strict and committed to doing the stuff in between the sessions, because otherwise you're just not going to get the maximum benefits from it. Yeah.
Max, anything that you would add to that in terms of the kind of practicalities of?
You mean other than ditto?
Yeah, no, it's exactly, absolutely fine. Yeah,
I mean, I've tried different things. I mean, I've been doing this 3 years since I've had my one-to-one coaching business, and I've tried different things, and what I found works is very similar. I do a 3-month program approximately. Some people go through it quicker than others. So around about 3 months, you're working with me completely one-to-one, and they have 7 90-minute sessions. Sometimes they will jump on calls in between if there's something big comes up that they want to talk through, that kind of thing. And we're on the chat in between as well. The frequency of the sessions and I actually let that be client-led. I say to them, when would you like your next session? But I encourage it to be within a fortnight. I think once you go beyond that, you get losing momentum, unless it's a big holiday or a honeymoon or something that's we knew about. But other than that, I say a week to a fortnight. And it depends on their diary, because I know what HR diaries can be like, but also what they're going to be working on before their next session. You know, they're going out into the world and trying out the things we've talked about. And how much time they'd like. And sometimes it can be they're going to try something at the next leadership meeting, that's say if they're on the senior leadership team, and it's not until a week on Thursday, so there's no point in having the next session till after that. So there's a degree of flexibility around it, but that's generally how it tends to work, and people take around 3 months to go through the program, and the transformation we can have in that time is phenomenal. But it isn't, as I said before, and as Emma just said, it's not time commitment particularly. But it does require discipline, commitment to yourself. The correlation between the clients who do the work between the sessions and the progress they make, and the ones that do less. Most of them do it because they're so motivated to do it. But the correlation is undoubtedly, it's absolutely there. Ones that put in the most work and really do that, see the phenomenal progress, and the transformation is much bigger. So yeah,
that's absolutely true. And then that's something that I wanted to say actually, is that some people come to coaching before they're ready, and they're not open to understanding and accepting some of the things that need to change, or to doing that work. And those people will not have a great coaching experience, because if they're not ready to make any changes, it's that old saying, isn't it? If you don't change anything, nothing changes. And I've sadly seen that with a couple of coaching clients. And in both situations, it's been where their company paid for it for them. And I don't think the person particularly wanted it or understood why they were being put forward for it. And so I have had situations where people are just like, we would have the session, and then the next session would be like, so how did that go? Oh, I haven't had time to do it.
Yes.
And so you'd kind of repeat yourself, and you think if you don't feel ready or able to commit from a time perspective, and also from a a lot of it's reflection and then putting new things into practice. If you don't feel able to commit to that, then you probably won't get much out of it. And that's when you'll tend to see that the fortnightly sessions will slide, because the person will be, well, I'm not quite ready yet. And the coach will realize very quickly that you're probably not going to be ready yet. But yeah, it's interesting. So when I had my ADHD coaching last year, that was a very strict once a week for 10 weeks, same time every week. But there was an awful lot less reflection required in that sort of coaching, because we were mostly talking about the different elements of my ADHD, how they affect my work, and then what could I put into place to kind of, that was a lot sort of, it was much quicker kind of reflection and action. It wasn't transformational, if that makes sense, because I already had the ADHD. I just needed to know how to deal with it. I wasn't trying to develop it. So that was a very different experience for me. But I think for most people, I always think fortnightly is about right. I think if you do it weekly, you don't have really time to take in everything, try anything new out. I think it's a bit too much. So, okay, right. So I want to talk about background and experience. So Emma E, I'm going to ask you this first, just simply as a coachee, and then I'll come to the others. But was it important to you that your coach had an HR background, or what else would you have looked for?
In the scenario I was talking about, it was important to me, because I needed somebody who could relate to the situation that I was going through, to really sort of bounce the ideas off. And arguably you could say that, as long as somebody can ask the right questions, they don't necessarily need the background. But in the scenario I was in, because it was quite specific and quite particular, and unless you're in HR, you don't really know how HR can play out, or what sort of experiences you can go through as an HR professional. It was quite important to me that the person did have the background. So, and I think I'm not suggesting that it wouldn't necessarily have still come to the right outcome, but I don't think it would have happened. I wouldn't have seen the transformation as quickly. It's because going from just didn't know where to start at session 1 to feeling fully equipped by session 4, and that was meeting with you every couple of weeks. The transformation happened so much more quickly because you were able to relate to the environment I was talking about, and I think it was really beneficial in that particular scenario. Yeah, and that's important. Not every scenario is the same, obviously, but there are some issues that are specific to HR, and there are some issues and situations that we find ourselves in that understanding can absolutely help. Mags, what are your thoughts on that in terms of what's important from a background or experience perspective?
I would always 100% advocate, if you're working with a coach for a particular reason, that coach has had that experience and been through that transformation themselves. So there's coaches out there for all kinds of things these days. You get life after divorce coaches, you get weight loss coaches and all that kind of thing. I would want somebody who's survived life after divorce, been through it all, and come out the other side with a great result, with a great outcome. And similarly, somebody who had been through a weight loss program rather than somebody who's been a size 8 all their lives. So, and I think that's the same with HR. I think somebody who understands HR, and it's the biggest feedback, well, not biggest, it's a big piece of feedback I get is, Mags, you get HR, what a difference it makes. I've worked with an exec coach or a leadership coach in the past, they hadn't a clue. Or even worse, they pretended they understood HR, and that was worse, that they pretended they understood what our world was like. And that was more, but they said, you get it. And it's just, because I've worked in HR all these years, I do. And it's they just said the difference that makes. It builds up trust, it builds up rapport much more quickly. You just know what they're talking about. And you've been there, pretty much all the technical stuff that gets thrown at people in HR I've had. So you just have to say 2p and I'm like, oh my God, I know where you're at with that, or whatever it happens to be.
Don't even get me started.
Complex ER cases or whatever it is they've had going on, or, strategy, or having a promotion where they're suddenly feeling out of their depth in an HR environment and they're suddenly in the senior leadership team, as an example. All those things, I've done. So I've felt the pain of that and how hard that is, so I can relate. So I think they appreciate that.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Emma D, what are your thoughts on this?
Largely the same. I think when I've gone for coaching, I've always looked for someone who has experience in something that I want to do, or I see something in them that I currently want to develop in myself. So I've had a coach like now for probably 10 years on different things, and so I see something in myself that I want to work on, and go and look for a coach that can do that thing. The one thing that did come into my mind when I was talking there, when you were talking there about the importance of HR, again, people just give the same feedback to me. It matters that you know what the HR environment is like. I think as coaches, what we then need to be conscious of, and are conscious of, no doubt, is that our experiences aren't the same. So we can only ever relate to the degree that we've had that experience, and actually our interpretation of it might be different as well. So it is important, whilst also knowing that coaching is not about why do I want to say this? Why am I coming out of this? Because this but coaching isn't about like, oh, we agree and we get on really well. Like, your coach is going to have to proper push you and say some things sometimes you're really not going to like. So maybe it's important for that initial rapport level, but as you go into the coaching journey, kind of separating out the fact that this person understands HR is, less relevant as you go on, because you do need your coach to be asking rather than relating to you, asking the difficult questions about, well, why is that happening like that in your world?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. That tendency to go with somebody that you like and you think you're going to get on with is natural, I think, for people. But at different times, I've wanted to be pushed or not pushed. And it's funny, isn't it? I remember a few years back, I wanted a business coach, but my key thing was like, I want someone who's really got their shit together in their own business, because the whole reason I want to go for coaching is because I'm trying to get mine together. And so I don't want someone who's as scatty as me. And it was all about that. It was about I was like looking at how their business was running and how they were doing. And it's like, I don't want to see any signs of weakness in this person. I want them to be like super businesswoman of the year kind of thing. And then I will feel like I can work with them and they'll know what they're talking about. So it's really interesting. The very first coach that I ever worked with was, at that time, she doesn't do it anymore, but at that time she was coaching introverted women, because I was just starting out as self-employed. I'd never even done a post on LinkedIn. Hark at me now, I won't shut up. But I'd never even posted on LinkedIn. And so she was actually helping me to kind of build up the confidence to even put anything out there on LinkedIn. So it's funny. It's like, that was what I needed at the time. I didn't need an HR background. And what about in terms of qualifications? There are loads out there now. You can do a coaching qualification on Udemy over a weekend for 30 quid. And I'm not poo-pooing any of that. I do also think that some people have a natural coaching approach, but what are your thoughts on qualifications? Because it's unregulated.
Who are you talking that to?
I'll tell you. Give Emma D. I'll give it to you.
Emma D. Again, from my own experience as a coachee, I don't think I've ever questioned anyone's qualifications. What does that say about me? Who knows? Is that the right approach? Who knows? The coaching journey has still been really powerful for me because of that person's ability to ask me the right questions and to hold the space for me that I need them to, and to deal with my emotions and to notice the patterns. I don't necessarily think you need a qualification for that. Otherwise, I'd be on board with CIPD, and you know what I think about that, right? I don't think qualifications are the be all and end all. I think for me, it's like, have a conversation with someone. Do that. What do you pick up on when you're talking to them? Are they questioning you? Are they, I don't know if. For me, it's about the energy and the interaction, and I think I'll be comfortable with this person challenging me? And if not, then it's going to be a horrible thing. So don't go there. So they're not the be all and end all for me. But yeah, it's a concern, I suppose. It's not a regulated industry, isn't it?
It's funny because I think, I did do my AOEC, and it took me 6 months, and I found it, just like I did with my CIPD, really restrictive in terms of style, because they have to teach you the theory, and there's a lot of models of coaching that were like, you know, there was the GROW acronym, and then I would spend all my time thinking, oh my god, I've just done the G, so now I've got to think about the R. And I never felt that it was going to flow as a conversation in the same way when you're constantly worrying about, oh, what style of coaching is this? And so, you know, I've got a ton of books on it, I've read a load, and I am qualified, but I honestly think I bring more of my natural self to my coaching than what I learned on that course. I mean, I loved it, but I don't know if it has made me way better than I would have been without it, if that makes sense. Who knows? So, Mags, any thoughts on that one?
I mean, I've never been asked, have I got a qualification in coaching? I do happen, I
really
just put out there, I do have a qualification, but I've never once been asked for it, or what was my qualification, or nothing. So, but yeah, but I think I would just say to people, you know, yes, it's about the chemistry, how you feel about the person. I think when you first meet somebody who potentially could be a coach, I think things I'd look out for is, are they giving time to you? Most coaches, good coaches, will give you a good chunk of their time for free for that initial get to know you sort of thing. And it should be about the coach getting to know you. That's what you should be, not like jump on a 15-minute call and I'll tell you, here's some slides about me and my price and let me know. You know, I'd look for someone to really draw out of you what you're looking for, what you're looking to gain, and then them saying, yeah, I can help you with that. Or as I sometimes do say, sorry, I'll need to signpost you elsewhere with that, but usually, yeah, I can help. But I sort of just see that they've got a genuine interest in you and giving you time at the outset for free. And I think the other thing to look out for is kind of their track record. You know, what experience, you know, who they worked with, speak to somebody else who's been coached by them. Look at the outcomes that they've had. Most of them have like testimonials on the website, that kind of thing. Just check all those kinds of things out. That'll tell you lots. But yeah, it's just that just having that conversation, you'll know, you know, especially if you work in HR, you've kind of got that radar, that sense of being able to pick up from people whether they're the right person for you or not. So yeah, but just ask about, you know, ask some questions before you first meet them. You know, what's their style, what's their adaptability, what's their flexibility, their approach, are they goals led, is it about mindset, you know, those kinds of questions. Just think through what it is you're looking for and make sure they can do it. A good coach will not mind answering all those questions.
Absolutely. So aside from like background, experience, qualifications, what are some of the things that you've looked for when choosing a coach for yourself? And I'll come to Emma E on that first.
So I've been coached by two different people, both with HR backgrounds, but I'd had interactions in different ways with both of them first, and I could. There were people that inspired me, or I admired the way that they did things. Their almost spectrum of experience, etc., and things I didn't have that I could recognise as gaps and development areas in myself, where I felt those people could help me plug those gaps and fill them. So I agree with everything in terms of, you know, the person, the chemistry, etc. But I think for me personally, it was people I admired in my own field who I knew I could work with, and who would give me enough challenge as well. Both strong personalities who would kind of really ask me the right sorts of questions, because when you work in HR, I think you can be pretty good at putting a mask on, and I needed somebody who could get through that mask if I wasn't prepared to be open enough in the coaching session, which both yourself and my previous coach did. So I think that's quite important, because I think you end up having to be quite resilient when you're working in HR, and it's quite easy to have the poker face on when inside you know you're feeling very different. So somebody to be able to get through that boundary through in a coaching session is really, really important.
Mags, how about you for your own, when you've looked for a coach?
Like I said earlier, I think it's somebody who's done the who's walked your path, somebody who's done. I looked for that with both the coaches I've worked with. I worked for one when I came away from out of that job and was thinking, what am I going to do with my career? And the other one was when I decided to set up my own business. Was working with a coach who was a specialist in social media and client attraction, all that, because I'd never done any of that before. In both instances, I looked for people that had a proven track record in those things. So that was one thing, personal connection. For sure, but also somebody who was going to challenge me, because I can be quite, but I can have the smart answers, but I want somebody who would get underneath that and see through that and think, and somebody who felt comfortable opening up to and being vulnerable with, because that's really important when you're being coached, is you've got to have that sense of comfort with that, because it can be a very vulnerable space to be in. Somebody who give me honest feedback, somebody hold me accountable. Because coaching is accountability, is something I wanted, that I know I've got my session on Wednesday and I've got things to do before then, so I'm going to do it. And that's something that I, particularly with the social media one, because it was, doing things that were way out of my comfort zone at the time. But it made me do it and, do client introduction calls and all those kinds of things. And it held me accountable, and it really boosted the momentum of getting me going with all of that. So, and I think the last thing I'd say is just somebody who's aligned with your values. If you've done a bit of work and understand what your values are, just make sure, you might not necessarily frame any questions as directly as that, but certainly just have a sense of, are we on the same wavelength in terms of that as well.
And Emily, anything you'd add to that? What's important for you?
I'm just thinking, I'm thinking about my coach, someone who can allow me to rant. So can I rant? Can I swear? Is she going to judge me, or are they going to judge me? I say she because she was my coach was a woman. So yeah, it's for me. It's really important. Do I feel like I can open up to this person and not be judged as a consequence? Any hint of feeling judged, I'm out.
That's what it was. I had one really bad coach, and he made assumptions about me without knowing me very well.
Yeah, don't do that.
And it was at the point where I was still doing a part-time HR job and my business at the same time, and I wasn't ready to go fully self-employed yet. And he made a comment about, I thought you were more rebellious than that. This seems a bit like you're being a chicken. And my wall just went at that point. And I was like, I got bills to pay, mate. Like, you're missing the point here entirely. And I remember thinking, no, don't, you're judging, you're criticizing, and you're basing this rebellious thing on the fact that I've got tattoos, for crying out loud. I'm not rebellious at all in my head. I just look like I am. So that was quite funny. And so, I always like to think about, what did I not like? And so I would be very much looking for somebody who just gets me. And like Emma, you were saying about, the swearing and the ranting, it's like, if you can't be yourself, if I can't say fucking bugger to my coach, then, I think that's not going to work with me. I mean, I need people to be able to be themselves with me. And if I'm coaching someone who doesn't swear, then obviously I'm not going to swear. But it's just about being able to feel comfortable and feel like you're being yourself. So I'm going to finish up. We've got a few minutes left. If you could articulate the value that you got from coaching in a couple of sentences, what would you say? And I'll come to Emma Eustace first.
I would say it is both transformative and life-changing, and I'd just like to caveat that with, it doesn't have to be absolutely grandiose life-changing. It can just be simple changes to behaviours and the way you feel about something that can transform the way that you do something in future, and then that's embedded in your behaviour thereafter. And it's invaluable. Something that you may struggle with for a long time, you can change and you can make it a permanent change. And I think that's where the groundbreaking, life-changing comment comes in, because it can be this big or it can be absolutely massive, and it doesn't necessarily matter which.
That's amazing. Emma D, how about you? What value have you got from coaching?
Coaching's changed my whole life. Like when I first was coached, I approached my kind of mentor then and asked him to make me a real business partner, make me a real HR business partner. And so that was my like high level, this is what I wanted. What I got from that was a deeper awareness of myself, a better understanding of my strengths, more awareness of like my value and just who I am as a person, what was important to me, what motivated me. And from that process and from that point onwards, everything's been completely different for me. So, and any time I've taken brave steps into the person that you see presented today, it has been because of coaching. So coaching's allowed me just, I suppose, to, when enabled, facilitated, whatever, me just to consistently be brave towards something that's really meaningful to me, which and the deep thing that's come from that is just a self-acceptance, like an awareness of, this is the stuff about me that's a bit icky. Okay, though, I can deal with it. Because that's part of me, and this is all of me is going towards this thing. So, it's just profound. Like, which makes me so frustrated that people are suspicious about it or don't think they need it, because you don't have to be at like, I want to change everything. Like, coaching can just help you just be more awesome. Full stop. So yeah, life changing.
It's a brilliant answer. Max, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It was life changing for me. I mean, completely did change the trajectory of my life and how I felt about myself. I think what it did for me, it changed my inner programming, my operating system in terms of how I felt about me inside, and therefore that changed everything on my outside, or how I perceived or interpreted. It just made me feel much more comfortable being authentically me. It gave me a sense of adventure and a sense of, I can do this, and bloody hell, I'm going to do this, and if it goes wrong, so what? I'm going to, just that sense of kind of give it a go, and life's too short, and I still have that to this day. I still do it, and it was almost like, that progress, not perfection, and have a go at doing it. If it doesn't go quite right, what does it matter? Just that kind of attitude, yeah, I just really, as I say, quite profound, and so glad I did it. Wish I'd done it earlier, but I'm so glad I did it when I did, which is, yeah. Absolutely.
And I think from my personal perspective, I am a completely different person than I was 5 years ago. And that would not have happened without coaching. So it helped me build myself. I said, built me. No, I did it. It helped me build myself back up after being fired and having zero confidence. It helped me understand and manage my ADHD. It has helped me build my own business. It's given me, Emma said, self-acceptance. It's given me the ability to recognize and actually articulate what I'm good at. Whereas I spent 45 years of my life going, oh no, I'm not really that good. Like, I'm hiding in the shadows. And that is, it is genuinely life-changing. I'm very aware that we're straying into evangelical territory here, but the thing is, for all four of us, it's had a massive impact. And so when you go out and you choose to coach other people, what drives me, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's the same for both Emma and Mags. If you can give somebody else even a fraction of that feeling, that feels like a bloody good day's work. It is the most amazing feeling. Like Emma, seeing you now compared with the first session that we had, very different. And that's, it's like, cracky, I played a part in that. That's amazing. It's just amazing. It's feels very fulfilling. So if there's anybody there who is, thinking about coaching but not sure, please reach out to one of us. There are others, obviously, as well. This is not just about the three of us, but there are a small but growing army of HR for HR coaches. Any one of us would be happy to talk to any one of you, find out a bit more about it, see how you think it might be able to help you. But yeah, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me. I feel like I need to go get myself another coach now because it's been a while. I finished my ADHD coaching and I'm like, oh, what do I need
warning.
next?
Maybe that's the warning that we need is like, once you start, you don't stop. Like, so once you start, you're going to spend thousands on yourself, basically. It never ends.
It's absolutely true. But no, I do. And I need to think about, let me get this conference out of the way next week. And then I'll think about what do I need in 2025 from a development perspective. But I know that person will be out there. It's a question of finding them. So brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who joined. And I shall pop the recording up on the app for anybody who wasn't able to join live today. And I hope you all have lovely evenings. And thank you once again.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.